It was late, probably close to 3 a.m. I was driving solo, cutting through the vast emptiness of Nevada, somewhere between nowhere and nothing. Just endless blacktop, the faint glow of my dashboard, and the constant hum of the tires against the asphalt. I'd been on the road for 12 hours straight, pushing through that heavy-lidded fatigue, hoping to reach a motel by dawn. The air was still, thick with the scent of dry earth and distant sagebrush. My phone had lost service miles ago, leaving me truly alone out there. Then I saw him. A figure on the shoulder, barely a silhouette in my high beams. A hitchhiker. No bags. Just standing there, facing west, his thumb out. My gut screamed at me to keep driving. This was the middle of nowhere. But then, a flicker of something. Pity, maybe. Or just the overwhelming silence getting to me. The thought that he could be in real trouble, or just genuinely stranded. Or maybe, just maybe, the idea of another voice. Any voice to break the monotony of the drive made me hesitate. I slowed down, my tires crunching faintly on the gravel as I pulled over about 50 feet past him. I watched him in my rearview mirror. He started walking towards the car slowly, deliberately. He opened the passenger door and slid in. He was an older man, maybe late 50s, with a weathered face, thin hair, and clothes that looked like they'd been worn for days. His eyes were dark, almost sunken, and they held an unnerving stillness. Not hostile, just empty. He gave a quiet grunt. Thanks. That was it. No eye contact, just staring straight ahead. I tried to break the ice. Where are you headed? His voice was a low, dry rasp. Just further west. He didn't elaborate, didn't ask where I was going, didn't ask for the radio, nothing. We drove in silence for what felt like an eternity. The highway signs were few and far between, and the landscape remained unchanged. Dark, flat plains stretching into infinity. I could feel the tension building in the car, a thick, unspoken weight. I kept glancing at him. He hadn't moved a muscle, just continued staring ahead, his hands clasped on his knees. After what must have been 15 minutes, he finally spoke again. His voice was softer this time, almost a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. You really shouldn't have stopped. My heart gave a heavy thump against my ribs. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, knuckles white. What do you mean? I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. He slowly turned his head towards the passenger window, his gaze fixed on the absolute blackness outside, the dense, low scrub brush that lined the highway. He didn't look at me, but his words were chillingly clear. Some things out here, they don't like company. They watch. They wait for lights like yours to stop. A cold dread seeped into my bones. My rational mind was screaming, "This is insane, he's just a crazy old man." But there was an unshakable sincerity in his voice, a raw conviction that was deeply unsettling. I felt a sudden, inexplicable prickle on the back of my neck, like eyes were actually boring into me from the impenetrable darkness just beyond my headlights. Then, he slowly raised a hand. His index finger, gnarled and thin, extended and pointed directly into the endless black, where the bush seemed to grow even thicker, more oppressive. "They're watching now," he breathed, his voice barely audible above the engine. I instinctively whipped my head to where he was pointing. My headlights cut through the gloom, but there was nothing. No movement, no shapes, just the desolate, empty landscape. Yet, I felt it. A palpable sense of presence, a cold, heavy weight settling in the air around us. Panic began to rise in my throat. I couldn't breathe. My hands were slick on the wheel. I had to get him out, now. "Look," I blurted, my voice cracking. I just realized I'm almost out of gas. There's a gas station sign I remember from a few miles back. I need to turn around." He slowly turned his head back to face me. And this time, there was a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. It was a cold, knowing smile. a smile that made my blood run even colder. "That's fine," he rasped. "They'll catch up eventually, they always do." My foot found the brake, slamming it down. I pulled over roughly onto the gravel shoulder. The moment the car stopped, he unbuckled, opened the door, and stepped out without another word. He didn't even look back. He just walked directly into the thick, light-eating darkness of the bush, disappearing in an instant, like he was never there. I shoved the gear into drive, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I floored it, peeling out, leaving a cloud of dust behind me. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror again. My only focus was the road ahead, the desperate hope of reaching civilization, any signs of life. I drove like a man possessed, ignoring speed limits until the first hint of dawn broke over the eastern horizon, painting the sky in a sickly gray. I found a diner in a small town, pulled into the parking lot, and just sat there, engine idling, staring blankly ahead. To this day, I can't shake the feeling. Whenever I'm driving alone at night on those long, empty stretches of American highway, I still instinctively check my rearview mirror. And sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I can feel that same cold dread, that prickle on the back of my neck, as if something out there is still watching, waiting. And for the rest of my life, I'll be haunted by the chilling words of that hitchhiker. They'll catch up eventually. It was last fall. My boyfriend Mark and I were driving up to visit my sister in a small town nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains. We were trying to make good time, but hit unexpected traffic coming out of Asheville. We were already a few hours behind schedule, and frustration was definitely starting to set in. Mark, ever the optimist, glanced at his phone. "Hey, Google Maps just found a new route," he said, tapping the screen. "Says it's a scenic bypass. Cuts off about 45 minutes. Looks like it winds through some back roads. Want to try it?" I hesitated. I'm usually wary of shortcuts, especially in unfamiliar mountain territory, but the thought of escaping the gridlock was too appealing. 45 minutes sounds good, I said. Let's do it. So, we took the exit. The road started off paved, but within a few miles it narrowed significantly and the asphalt turned rough, then into a dusty gravel path. Tall, ancient trees, mostly pines and oaks, crowded in on both sides, their branches forming a dense canopy that barely let the afternoon sun through. It felt like we'd stepped into a different world. At first, it was kind of charming, rustic, quiet. But as we drove deeper, the charm evaporated. The road became increasingly winding and overgrown. We kept hitting dips and sharp turns that rattled the car. My phone and Mark's both lost signal. The GPS icon on his screen just spun uselessly. "Huh," Mark murmured, frowning at his phone. "Lost service. Typical for these mountains, I guess." But it felt different. It wasn't just a dropped call signal. It felt like we'd driven off the grid entirely. Every twist and turn started to look the same. The trees seemed to grow closer, the air felt heavier. After what felt like an hour, I started to get an uneasy feeling. "Are you sure this is the right way?" I asked, craning my neck to look for a sign. Any sign. "It has to be," Mark said, a slight edge of worry in his voice now. "The map said to just stay on this road until it connects back." But it didn't connect. We drove on, and the feeling of disorientation grew. We passed a single gnarled oak tree that was strangely scarred, like lightning had struck it repeatedly. 10 minutes later, we passed it again, or what looked exactly like it. My stomach clenched. "Mark," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "didn't we just pass that tree?" He shrugged it off. "Nah, must be another one. Lots of old trees out here." But I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes. Then we started seeing other things. Not on the road itself, but tucked away in the deep woods just beyond the tree line. First, it was a rusted-out ancient truck, half swallowed by the undergrowth, its doors ajar, but no visible signs of what might have happened to it. A few miles later, another one, and another. Each one looked like it had been abandoned decades ago, long before any current GPS could guide you. Then came the really disturbing sightings. We started noticing ribbons tied to tree branches, not typical trail markers. They were old, faded strips of cloth, almost black with age, tied into strange, complex knots. And they appeared with unsettling regularity, sometimes just one, sometimes a cluster of them, always just barely visible through the thick foliage. Then, through a brief break in the trees, I saw something truly unnerving. A structure. Far off in the distance, a crude, rickety tower, or perhaps just an abnormally tall pile of dark, uneven stones. It was too far to make out details, but its silhouette against the dim sky sent shivers down my spine. It looked ancient, pagan, and utterly out of place. Moments later, we saw it again from a different angle, but it was undoubtedly the same structure. We were driving in circles. Panic began to rise in the car. We started arguing, our voices tight with fear. Mark tried to force his phone to reconnect, holding it up, shaking it, cursing. The fuel gauge was steadily dropping, and the thought of running out of gas out here, truly lost, in this loop of forgotten roads and strange markers, was terrifying. The setting sun was beginning to cast long, eerie shadows through the trees, making everything look even more menacing. Just as the last sliver of sun vanished behind the mountain ridge, and the car's fuel light blinked on, a terrifying realization hit me. No matter which way we turned, no matter how many times we drove, we just kept seeing the same few landmarks, the same scarred oak, the same rusted trucks, the same cryptic ribbons. We weren't just lost, we were trapped. Then, without warning, the trees suddenly thinned out. The gravel road abruptly ended, and we were back on smooth asphalt. My jaw dropped. We were on a 4-lane highway, brightly lit by streetlights, and just ahead I saw a familiar motel sign, the one we had been trying to reach for hours. It was as if we had simply popped out of the woods. The digital clock in the car showed it was only about an hour and a half past when we'd entered that detour, but it had felt like half the night. We should have run out of gas, or driven for countless hours. We pulled into the motel parking lot, shaken and silent. We never spoke of it again on that trip. When we got home, I tried to find that scenic bypass on every map app, every online forum. It simply doesn't exist. There are no shortcuts that lead where we went. To this day, the thought of that road, those looping trees and the silent watching stones sends a chill down my spine. It was a place that didn't want us there, a place that plays by its own rules. And sometimes, I still wonder what would have happened if we had run out of gas back there in that endless, disorienting loop, swallowed by the silent mountain. It was a solo drive. I was heading from Denver, Colorado, out to visit family in Kansas, a drive I'd done countless times. It's mostly flat highway once you leave the mountains, mile after mile of open plains and endless sky. This particular night, though, was different. I left late, after a long day at work, figuring I'd make good time with less traffic. The moon was full, casting long, eerie shadows from the occasional clumps of trees, but the highway itself was practically deserted. Just me, my headlights cutting a path through the black and the drone of the engine. I had my phone charging, playing some podcasts, but the silence outside the car was profound. That kind of quiet where you can almost hear your own heartbeat. I'd been driving for a few hours, probably somewhere in rural eastern Colorado, or just over the Kansas border, when I first noticed it. A flicker in my rearview mirror. Just a brief, almost imperceptible shimmer, like a camera flash in the distance, but there were no other cars. I dismissed it as a trick of the light, maybe a stray reflection from a distant farmhouse window. Tiredness playing tricks on me. But then, about 15 minutes later, it happened again. More distinct this time. Not a flash, but a brief, dark shape. Almost like someone had quickly walked across the road behind me. But again, nothing there. No car, no headlights. I frowned, shaking my head to clear the fatigue. Must be my eyes. I kept driving, trying to ignore it, but the feeling of being watched started to creep in. a subtle prickle on the back of my neck. I kept glancing up, my eyes darting to the mirror. Nothing. Just the empty, endless highway stretching out behind me. Then, perhaps 20 minutes after the second incident, it happened for a third time. This time, it wasn't a flicker. It was clearer. A dark figure, impossibly close, standing directly behind my car in the rearview mirror. It was hunched, vaguely human-shaped, but too tall, too slender, and perfectly still. And there was no car there. Nothing but the black asphalt. My breath hitched. My heart hammered against my ribs. I slammed on the brakes hard. The tires screeched, and the car lurched forward before coming to a complete stop in the middle of nowhere. I stared, wide-eyed, into the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the empty road. The moonlight illuminating the highway behind me, stretching out for miles. There was no one. Not a soul. I sat there, engine idling, trying to rationalize it. Exhaustion, hallucination, the vast emptiness of the plains getting to my head. I took a few deep, shaky breaths, forcing myself to calm down. I even got out of the car, walked to the back and scanned the road, the ditches, the fields. Nothing. Just the wind whispering through the dry grass. Convinced I was just overtired, I got back in, started driving again, slowly at first, then picking up speed. I tried to focus on the podcast, on the road ahead, but the unease lingered. I couldn't stop myself from glancing at the rearview mirror every few seconds. And then, about 5 minutes later, it was there again. This time, it was undeniable. The figure, clearer than before. It wasn't just in the reflection. It felt like it was part of the mirror itself. A gaunt, skeletal face, impossibly pale, with hollow, black eyes. It was pressed right up against what looked like the back window of my car, its head tilted slightly, staring directly into the mirror, directly at me. A cold, visceral fear gripped me. My blood ran cold, and a primal scream caught in my throat. I couldn't move, couldn't look away from those empty black eyes staring back from the reflection. This wasn't exhaustion, this wasn't my imagination. Something was there. My foot instinctively slammed down on the accelerator. The car roared, rocketing forward. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, my whole body trembling. I tried to scream, but only a strangled gasp escaped. The reflection, the face. It didn't move. It stayed fixed, perfectly still. Its hollow eyes boring into mine even as the scenery outside blurred past. It was like it was anchored to my car, no matter how fast I went. I pushed the car to its absolute limit, the speedometer needle climbing higher and higher. The wind shrieked past the windows. I glanced wildly from the road to the mirror, desperate to make it disappear. But it remained. That gaunt, pale face, those black hollow eyes. And then, slowly, a horrific thin-lipped smile began to spread across its face in the reflection. It wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of pure, malevolent hunger. I was openly weeping now, hyperventilating, my vision blurring. The thought of it eventually breaking through the glass or suddenly appearing in the back seat filled me with a terror I had never known. I drove like that for what felt like an eternity, screaming silently, my eyes glued to that terrifying reflection. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, just as I saw the faint lights of a distant town on the horizon, the figure in the rearview mirror vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. Just the empty black road behind me again. I didn't stop driving until I reached my sister's doorstep, the morning sun already high in the sky. I pulled into her driveway, cut the engine, and just sat there, shaking uncontrollably for what felt like hours. I never told anyone what happened that night. How could I? Who would believe me? But to this day, years later, when I drive alone at night, especially on long, empty stretches of road, I can't help it. My eyes are drawn compulsively to that little square of glass. And sometimes, in the darkest hours, when the fatigue starts to set in, I swear I can still see the faintest shimmer, a momentary distortion, a hint of something skeletal lurking in the depths of my rearview reflection. It's a reminder that not everything that haunts you is behind you. If these stories sent a shiver down your spine, remember to hit that like button, leave a comment about your own experiences, and subscribe to Mr. Nightdread for more chilling tales. Until next time, stay safe and stay scared.